One of the questions I get asked a lot is really, what is my perspective on the biblical view of concealed carry? If you are a Christian, a lot of Christians have a problem with concealing and carrying, and a lot of that has to do with the way they are interpreting biblical principles and that sort of thing. So specifically, this video is going to address a certain story in the Bible that talks about the importance of carrying a weapon in an effort to protect your home, your family, and yourself. So we're going to get right to it. We're going to take a look at the book of Nehemiah, and this is an awesome example of why good Christians should be carrying. Now in Nehemiah, what's taking place, a little backstory here. Nehemiah was born in captivity in Babylon, and prior to him even being born, the Jews were held captive by the Babylonians and led off to Babylon to essentially be held captive there. Now, it was prophesied hundreds of years before this took place that they would be led off into captivity into Babylon, and that they would be there for 70 years, and then the Persians would conquer the Babylonians, and then they would be set free after 70 years. And that's exactly where Nehemiah is. A lot of the Jews have been set free by the Persians. They have conquered the Babylonians, and now Persia is running Babylon, and they have sent some of the Jews home. Now, where Nehemiah plays a role is Nehemiah was the cupbearer for King Artaxerxes. And he apparently was a very happy man, Nehemiah, because there was a particular day that he had heard that Jerusalem was in rubble, that the walls were destroyed, and more so the people that had survived the captivity were in great distress and misery, and this weighed heavy on his heart. And as he was serving the king noticed that he was sad, and he called him on it. And apparently Nehemiah and the king were great companions, because when he made his request to the king to return to Jerusalem, he also requested that the king give him letters to make it through the different provinces on his way. He also requested that he give him letters that then would ask building supply people down there to provide for him so he can rebuild the walls of Jerusalem and eventually rebuild the Temple of Solomon. Now the king not only agreed to this, he also sent him with captains of armies and horsemen and that sort of thing to get him there safely. Now, once he got down there, that's where he ran into problems, because when you see a people group being held in misery, they usually is somebody causing that misery, and there was a few different people groups causing problems for the Jews. And when Nehemiah spoke about rebuilding the walls, they were greatly angered by this. They did not want to see the nation of Jerusalem be fortified behind a wall, because I'm sure they were taking advantage of their vulnerability. So when Nehemiah began to build the wall, and he got all the Jews together from Jerusalem and their families and kind of set them on the wall according to their families and their houses, and everybody just started to build. And immediately these other people groups came up against them. They surrounded them and said they were just that these walls would not hold and that they were going to kill them. So I'm going to pick up right at that moment and see, what does the Bible say about protecting your family and your home with a concealed weapon. So we're going to pick up in Nehemiah 4:9, where it says, "Nevertheless, we made our prayer to our God, and because of them we set a watch against them day and night. Then Judah said, the strength of the laborers is failing, and there is so much rubbish that we are not able to build the wall. And our adversaries said, they will neither know nor see anything till we come into their midst and kill them and cause this work to cease. So it was, when the Jews who dwelt near them came, that they told us 10 times, for whatever place you turn, they will be upon us. And therefore I positioned men behind the lower parts of the wall at the openings, and I set the people according to their families, with their swords, their spears, and their bows." So what Nehemiah is doing is he's setting people on the wall according to their families, and as people are working, there's also people in those families holding spears and bows and swords, protecting the workers. Now, it's important to mention, these are not soldiers. These are just average day family men. Now, this arming of these families really confused these adversaries that were coming against them. And we pick up in verse 16 where it says, "So it was from that time on that half of my servants worked at construction, while the other half held spears, and shields and bows and wore armor, and the leaders were behind all the houses of Judah. Those who built on the wall and those who carried burdens loaded themselves so that with one hand they worked at construction, and with the other hand they held a weapon." Now, what this means is as they were working, they knew that they could at any time be attacked, so they also held weapons with them as well. But it goes on to say in 18, "Every one of the builders had his sword girded at his side as he built." So not only are they carrying weapons, they're actually concealing them and carrying them on them in the event they run into trouble. And they continued this until it goes on to 21. "So we labored in the work, and half of the men held spears from daybreak until the stars appeared. And at the same time I also said to the people, let each man and his servants stay at night in Jerusalem, that they may be our guard by night and a working party by day. So neither I, my brethren, my servants, nor the men of the guard who followed me took off their clothes, except that everyone took them off for washing." So really what's taking place here is that Nehemiah and the Jews of Jerusalem had essentially armed themselves, and at many times during this they called out to God, and God blessed them and He blessed their works. And more so, I'm going to kind of go back to verse 13 to talk about, well, did God really bless this effort? I mean, here they are, these are laborers, and they are arming themselves and carrying a sidearm on them to protect themselves and their families. It says in 13, "Therefore I positioned men behind the lower parts of the wall at the openings, and I set the people according to their families with their swords and their spears and their bows. And I looked and arose and said to the nobles, to the leaders, and to the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, great and awesome, and fight for your brethren, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your houses." Now this is critical because God is going to bless you if you are defending your brethren, if you are defending your families, if you are defending your houses. You know, we're not meant to just pick up arms and be bullies or pick up arms and be militia. But we are not meant to just be defenseless. Now, Jerusalem was a defenseless nation. I don't know about your neighborhood, but mine does not have a wall around it. And I feel a strong desire that if I need to protect my family, I definitely am going to have my sword girded at my side at all times. So there you go. You know, again, if you're struggling as a Christian with whether or not God's okay with you carrying a concealed weapon or carrying a firearm at all, be rest assured. Take a look at Nehemiah chapters 1 through 5 and just see how God blessed them through their efforts and through their abilities to protect themselves, their families, and of course their houses. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. You can also now find us on Facebook under God, Family, and Guns. But most importantly, this YouTube channel is a ministry to us, and we take prayer requests, so please don't ever hesitate to send that stuff in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.